Happy Tuesday, kicking off the 1 o'clock hour.
We'll see if Bill Armstrong has caught his breath. Because
I can't imagine the smile he had driving into the facility this morning.
Yeah, when that announcement hit him, it was almost like he jumped into a cold pool.
Yeah.
And you could see it took him a good 15, 20 seconds to get his composure to be able to make a comment on the movement from number 14 all the way up to number 4. So let's see if he's caught his breath yet.
Bill Armstrong, one of the happiest men in all of Utah right now, joining us. You thought you were done with these conversations. You jump up 10 spots, and darn right we're going to get you on. Congratulations. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great. Thank you very much. It's just a beautiful sunny day in Utah, and everything seems right.
Yeah.
You can see the mountains.
The food tastes a little bit better. Everything's going your way. Yeah.
It's unbelievable, but it was shocking, to be honest with you. Because I've been in that chair where you're just waiting to hear, and you go numb because you never think you're going to win it, right? And I've been doing it for so long, and you're just like, oh my God, you're never going to win it. And then I saw the number come up. I'm like, I think we just won. It was incredible, absolutely incredible. And your mindset changes. You're like, hey, we're picking the top 4. This is incredible. Because you have to realize that there's a lot of money makers in hockey picked in the top 5. And it's hard to get in there. So the thing about it is you got to experience a whole lot of pain to pick there. And for us, we didn't experience that at all. We played meaningful games down the stretch, and we improved by 12 points. So and now we're in the top 4 to pick. So it's just an incredible moment for our organization. Yeah,
you almost got to pinch yourself. I mean, that you go 1.5% chance, Bill, and help me understand this, because I may have misconstrued this a bit. If there wasn't a rule that you could only jump up 10 spots, would you have even been higher?
We would have been at 2. We would have been at 2, yeah. So, and it was kind of like interesting how they did it. I don't know if it was, you couldn't I was on camera, so I'm trying to make sure I'm reading it accurate. And there's a little bit of a delay to figure out if we'd actually won it there for a second. So I was like, hey, I don't want to celebrate. I'm on camera in case it wasn't 3 that came up. But yes, it was pretty remarkable. The odds are just stacked against us, and here we are picking 4.
So how much, I mean, because obviously everybody says, oh, we're preparing for every scenario. But when you got 1.4% chance, you know how to divvy up your time. So you're probably looking in that, 12 to 16, 18 range. Yeah. And now you've got to alter things a little bit. What are things like, and what were the conversation with your scouting staff like this morning?
Well, they were just so excited. I said to these guys, you guys are pretty spoiled. I said, you're pretty lucky that you picked Gunther at 9, Cooley at 3, Simashev at 6, Iginla at 4, and now you're going to pick at 4 again. I said, you guys are having a good run, where you've been able to pick a pretty high pick. So, for us, we study the whole draft. We have an experienced staff who we're always prepared, and if you're picking at 14, you know what's going on at 1 and 2 or 3 or 4. Now we just got to go back and double check and go through all the video and go through all the analytics and all the other research that we'll do. So it's really just fine tuning now, but we're in a good position, and we've got an incredible staff with a whole bunch of experience that have really done a nice job for us over the years, and they're super excited at picking in the 4.
Well, let's talk about this a little bit more in detail for the new NHL fans out there, the new Utah Hockey Club fans that have been built through this season, and a little bit more specific on the number 4 overall pick, because I went back just in recent history. I found Mitch Marner, right wing at Toronto Maple Leafs. I found Brady Tkachuk, Tkachuk, the left wing at Ottawa. And I'm like, and then you mentioned Tej, which I don't think people understand what you were able to pick up at number 4 yet. But we're talking about real game changers. I don't know who else might come to your mind at number 4, but just talk about the significance of what you can pick right there.
Well, whenever you're starting your rebuild, you're aiming to pick in the top 5. That's your goal. It's just to finish. It's just as hard to finish dead last as it is to finish first overall. it's just the way it works. And so if you can get into the top 5 in the NHL draft, you can get a moneymaker. You can get a real good player that can help transform your organization. And so for us, there's a big difference in picking in that area. Not to say that you couldn't our staff wouldn't have done a great job at 14 and maybe found the same value. But when you're picking at 4, you got a better chance to get a moneymaker in the draft. And so it could, we're super excited about what's there as talent wise and looking forward to making that pick. And I think the other thing is too is, you can also trade the pick, and there's a million other things that we can do with it to kind of create some value of maybe some of the needs we have now. So there's a lot of options on the table for us. And the fact that we've already drafted Gunther, Cooley, Lamoureux, Simashev, Buda, Ginla, and Cole Baudouin, we've got some good talent in the pipeline.
Well, I'm sorry. I was just to your point. I was just going to say that you look at the options you have, and in this rebuild process, I got to imagine the phone's going to ring a little bit and saying, "Hey, what do you want for that 4th overall pick?" Because as we've found out over the last learning about this sport, unlike the NFL and the NBA, you draft somebody 4th overall, it's still going to be a minute before you can count on them to be a contributor for the team. So I got to imagine there's a little bit of a temptation there to really take this thing out and shop it around and see what might be available for you.
Well, I think we have to look. That's the thing. We have to look and explore and see what we can get for the number 4 overall pick. And, we've got to explore every option, improve the club. And how can we do that, with our timeline at the same time? And we were able to pick up Sergachev last year, and we made some trades for Marino at the draft. So, this is an exciting moment for us because of the amount of options it provides us. And, it's going to be it's going to be a lot of work, but it's going to be fun putting this together and seeing what we can make of it.
Well, let's talk about that number 4 pick, and then let's talk a little bit about what you guys have with some cap space. It seems like it's close to 20, maybe 22, 23 million in cap space. How much? See, we're used to NBA terms, Bill, and now you've got $60 million contracts, yearly contracts in the NBA. But $22-23 million, there's a lot of flexibility in that in the NHL, is there not?
Oh, they're huge. The cap is really going to jump here. From the next year, it's going to get to 95.5, and then it's going to go to 104 and 113. So it's going to move here, in the next few years in the NHL. It was kind of stagnant during COVID, hung around the 80 million something, and now it's really growing. So for us, I mean, we can squeeze a lot of players out of that. The one thing is once you eat up the cap and you sign long-term deals, you're kind of locked into it. So we just want to make sure if we're going to spend the money, it's going to be a need for us and not just to spend the money to spend the money. So I think we've been pretty due diligent in our planning and who we have spent the money on, and also understanding that you've got a core of young players that are not at their peak yet. And so to go out and lock yourself in for long-term, it's almost a reverse effect where your guys aren't ready to win the Stanley Cup, and now you've invested in all these other guys. And now when your core guys are getting really good, the other guys that you signed are aging out. So you definitely, there's a timing aspect of it that you have to make sure that you kind of perfect so you don't lock yourself in and soon enough you won't have any cap space and you won't have any flexibility. So we've done a good job of it. With the Sergachevs of the world and the Marinos coming in that have joined our club and at the right time and the right age, and at the right cap. So we're going to continue with that same process.
I want to shout out some guys that may not necessarily be household names here with your Utah Hockey Club, but also talk about how important they are in what you've already built here and how important they're going to be over the next month or so. But Daryl Pandowski and Ryan Jankowski, What did those guys rely? I mean, how do you rely on them, and what do they bring to the table in terms of your preparation for this draft?
Well, they're such a key. When we started this way back when to build a championship team, the first thing that came to us was, hey, we're going to have to build a championship front office behind the scenes. And those are the two of the first guys that I hired. And it was just going through COVID. There was teams laying some people off, and there was a way that we could kind of get it done. And these guys had massive amount of experience, and Daryl had helped build Tampa Bay, and Ryan had done an amazing job with the Canadian program, along with building the Islanders and a little bit of Buffalo. So he had really stepped up and knew the draft, and those two guys together have just been dynamic and allowing us to draft some of the top talent. You get to watch in front of you play the Coolies of the world and the Gunthers and the Doans. They've had a huge impact on our organization, and they're going to have to bring their A game at this year's draft. We're picking high, and they've got to blow it out of the water.
So June 27th and June 28th in Los Angeles. But the draft has changed, and I remember you guys, I believe, were out in Vegas the first year. Scotty and I were covering this draft process, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking, oh, things are going to change dramatically in 2025. What is changing?
Well, we're going to stay in Utah. All the clubs are going to stay in their home city and run it remotely, and there'll be a draft that the commissioner and whoever you appoint to announce your pick will be done in LA. And so that will be a first time for the NHL that we go to that kind of way that they want to do it. So it'll be interesting. The clubs had voted it that way, so we'll see if it goes back after the following year. But right now, this is the way that they'll run it, and it'll be exciting. It's always a good time. We're going to get to add to our club, and Mr. Bettman will do all the announcing, and we're not sure who we're going to get going in to represent our team, so we'll see how that plays out.
How does this, and I'm asking, you don't need to go into specifics or anything, but some drafts, when you evaluate them going into it, appear to be stronger than other drafts. From a talent standpoint, how does this draft compare to some that you've seen in the past?
Really strong draft up until 4.
then it drops off considerably after 4.
Those expectations.
There's a cliff after that, but it's going to get us to 4, so we're going to be fine. We just did this exercise as a staff, because you hear, it's a strong draft, it's a weak draft, and I just went through the 2012 draft where I think the first 4 players in the draft were busts, and explained to them, and we went through some of the teams that did really well in the draft, and I said, listen, whether it's a weak draft or a strong draft, we've got to find players. Like there's no excuse about that. It's great when it's a strong draft and everybody does well, but whether it's a strong or weak draft, at the end of the day, we got to find players that are going to help us win a championship. So that's my big goal. I never looked at the draft as an excuse, whether it was strong or whether it was weak. I always thought, hey, good staffs will find good players.
So I had the time of my life watching the St. Louis Blues Winnipeg Jets series and thought about you the whole time. Every time I flip on the Blues, I think about Bill Armstrong because I know you were there and part of that building process. But, I'm sitting there and I'm watching Faxa and I'm watching Matthew Joseph and, I'm watching this group of guys, Robert Thomas and Jordan Binnington. And I'm thinking to myself, this is nothing that the Utah Hockey Club doesn't have or can't have. And they're pushing the league best Winnipeg Jets to a Game 7 where it took a score with 1.5 seconds left for the Jets to even push overtime against the Blues. And I'm like, the Utah Hockey Club is not far from this, are they, Bill?
No, I believe that we're really a competitive club and a club that's going to push the boundaries to get into the playoffs next year. And so we're not far away. And I like the way that we've built it. We've got competitive kids, that talent. The one thing that we talked about when we're building is we want top-end talent, but we want talent that gives first and second efforts. And that's where you see the Gunthers and the Coolies and the Doans and the Sergachevs of the world, and the Durzees. We're not far off. We're not far off from that. We need a little bit of growth from our players. We got to improve in the summer. Everybody's got to get 10% better. If we come back and do that, we're going to have a chance to compete for a playoff spot. And you never know when you get in. You just never know. And this is the toughest division in hockey, and it's going to be a great battle to get in. But I do believe our guys are going to make a step as we come back here.
If we were to hop in the time machine and go back to last summer and say, hey, Bill, you're going to be drafting 4th overall in the 2025 draft, you're like, ooh, I don't know how many of us are going to be around if that's the case.
You're probably right about that.
So you get the best. You get the best of both worlds there.
It's incredible. I had to pinch myself as I woke up this morning. We didn't get any of the pain, and we got to pick at 4th. So we're going to get to pick at 4th. So it's really a great thing.
Hey, speaking of picking at 4th, and I know that he wasn't 4th, but he was 5th, and one of the guys that I loved watching was Braden Shin. Were you a part of that
Yeah.
draft selection?
We traded for him, yes. So he was a part of the crew that we had traded for at the Chicago draft when we had drafted Robert Thomas in that one. So yeah, we needed a centerman, and we ended up the one thing on the build of the St. Louis Blues is that we didn't have the centerman we needed. To kind of build out the team. That was our one thing that we were missing. So we ended up trading for Schenner and trading for Ryan O'Reilly. And then we drafted Robert Thomas to fit in the mix. So we ended up filling up the center spots pretty quick. But yeah, he's a great player, great captain, great human being. And he certainly is one of the guys that can elevate his game at the next level in the playoffs.
So did I got to imagine Ryan reached out to you? Did Danny reach out and say, "Hey, what do you got up your sleeve? What can we use to any good luck charms or anything the Jazz can use for next Monday when they have their lottery?"
Well, I'll volunteer to do it if they need the luck. Maybe my luck's gone. I don't know, but we're super excited. That would be an incredible thing for Utah if we won both. That would just be that would be amazing.
Oh,
so
man.
we're cheering for the Jazz guys to get the first overall pick. It'd be huge for them. And when they're going through the rebuild, there's a lot of painful moments, and hopefully this is a spectacular moment for that group. We're cheering for them.
Hey, before we let you go, I know the renovation to the lower bowl's going on right now, and then over year 2, the upper bowl, and year 3, and more work to the upper bowl. But how much did conversations did they have with you and the front office staff in the design, and just how cool when you saw that thing laid out and what that thing's going to look like? How fired up are you for next season?
Oh my God! I mean, when we walked in there, the dressing room and it wasn't built, a year ago, and they just crushed it. They came in and just blew it out of the water. All the little things they did behind the scenes, and now they're getting to the actual structure of the stands and how it's going to be. It's really an incredible arena. It's just built. It has good bones in it, and it's loud, and it's just so steep when you sit on the ice. It's almost intimidating. I'm just so excited about the new things that they're going to do to the lower bowl and then to the upper bowl. It's just going to be incredible. I feel at home when I'm in the Delta Center. It's just the place that I can envision just being the loudest place in the NHL and winning a championship out of there. So the improvements that they're going to do is just going to add into what's already becoming an elite franchise in the National Hockey League. And we're also going to add an elite practice facility out in South Jordan there and Sandy there. So it's going to be incredible just going out there every day. And it's only going to add into what type of players we can attract in free agency.
That's what I was going to say. Do those things really influence guys in free agency?
They do, because not only like the thing that when you move here from an outsider moving into Utah is like you notice the mountains and how beautiful it is, and just living in this, it's just incredible. Sometimes you walk out of a mall and you look at the view and go, I'm walking out of a mall. It's like the most beautiful view I've ever seen in my life, and just the people are super nice. The quality of living here is so good. And then you mix in the fact that the Delta Center is going to get redone. You're mixing in the fact that we're going to have an elite practice facility. People just love that. It's just, and you've got one of the best owners in sports. It's just all coming together and to make an elite franchise, which is going to allow us to attract some of the biggest names in hockey.
Jay Stevens was hanging out with Hans yesterday on the show, and he mentioned that he felt like a lot of the guys were sticking around during the offseason. Is that something that is rare, and how fired up are you that a lot of guys want to say, hey, coach, or they're telling us we need to get 10% better. The best way to do that is to stay close to the facilities and keep working with the staff.
I think we're going to have a large number that stay in the summer this year, but even larger next year when the new facility is in place. They're not going to leave that. The summer training there will just be incredible. And obviously it's at their option. It's illegal to kind of force your guys to train. They're going to be lined up at the door to train there. It's going to be an elite facility that has everything. And the summers in Utah, I've never experienced them so far, but I hear they're pretty spectacular. So I think we're all looking forward to spending a little summertime here, and it'll be a good fit. And I do believe we can attract some of the top NHL talent in here. It's got a little bit of everything, and we're going to become an elite franchise very quickly.
Phoenix is great in December, not so much in July. Salt Lake is great in July, so yeah, you'll like that. Hey, we appreciate you.
Good.
Appreciate you hanging out with us again. Congratulations, fired up for you and the possibilities that you guys now have in the draft. And good luck. Go crush it.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you having me on.